Aaron Brightman, the Scarlet Faithful podcast. Day 2 of portal season opened on Monday. Had a lot of news. I had a rapid reaction to Derek Simpson entering the portal for Rutgers on Monday. Talk about what it means from a perspective that the entire 2022 recruiting class is now in the portal for Rutgers. And then also just in terms of expectations and really about roster construction and how I think Steve Pikiell and the staff should build moving forward, and also what they can learn from and how they might adjust from the ever-changing landscape of college basketball recruiting, the transfer portal, NIL, in respect to the 2022 class. Derek Simpson, Antoine Woolfolk, Antonio Chol, all in the transfer portal. And the reality is none of them were in a position to play major roles next season. And while Derek Simpson, Antoine Woolfolk certainly had flashes at times, Derek Simpson last year, breakout game against Indiana, he was the catalyst for the improbable 19-point comeback at Penn State. Really kind of gave Rutgers a huge lift down the stretch last season, even though they just missed the NCAA tournament. Offensively, he was a spark. And then this season, that Nebraska game, he was fantastic. And he created offense for his teammates. He was a facilitator. He was playing at a high level, high IQ, making great decisions. He had some big scoring games at times this year. That first Michigan game, he hit some big shots. He, hit some big shots in the loss at Ohio State. A few other games, he had at least 4 or 5 games of 19 points or more. But it was just a lack of consistency, a lack of decision-making, a lack of shot-making. Antoine Woolfolk, he was the best screener on the team. He had, for his size, he could dribble all the length of the floor. He was fluid. He was athletic. But, he was unfortunately kind of a tweener at this level. Not really a 5. Could be a 4, but didn't have enough growth where he could make a consistent impact on either end of the floor. And then Antonio Chol, he's a good shooter from what they say in practice, but I've seen him a little bit. But, he didn't look comfortable on the floor in his limited action. He didn't look like he had much feel. And all 3 are moving on now. So certainly a big miss in terms of a recruiting perspective, recruiting class. All 3 players 2 years after they arrived at the program, making various levels of impact, but none. Derek Simpson was a starter, but obviously contributed to a lot of the struggles this team had. Unfortunately, did evolve defensively, which I touched on in my rapid reaction. But at the end of the day, to move this program forward, I think it's probably best for all parties involved that they move on. I think it's better for them, whether it's go down a level, whether it's go to a different program, a different opportunity next season. I think it's what's best for them, and I think it's definitely what's best for this program in terms of upgrading the roster and finding guys in certain skill sets that can help this team win. And I think it's only fair to look back. It's easy to complain and say, Pikiell totally missed on this class. And, there were misses in 2020, 2021. Obviously he brought in Cliff, which really elevated the level of recruiting, really knocked things up a notch. Mawat Mag was kind of, I think, really, you look back as a steal, just in terms of he played for, prolific prep, a great, high school basketball program, but he was, he dealt with injuries. He was a starter there, but a lot of big names on that team. And, he's certainly developed at Rutgers. Injuries have held back some of his development as well. Andre Hyatt was a key transfer that they brought in. Cam Spencer was a key transfer. But in terms of high school kids they brought in, they've missed on more than they've landed. Of late, 23 is looking promising with Griffiths and Davis. I think a key with 22 and before that, but 22 was the first year NIL was possible. And Rutgers really wasn't ready for that. So I think that certainly was a factor in what they landed in that 2022 class. And then also, they had such an established core for so long with Gio, Ron, Caleb, Miles, and then Cliff, that it was hard to land, when you have 4 guys that are going to get 30, 35 minutes a game. there's certain kids that aren't going to, sign up for that challenge. So I think it kind of, in a way, hurt competition in the program. I've talked about this a lot. Like I just, probably kind of roll the ball out for the starting five, but it didn't really, and it's not, I'm not blaming him. It's just, it was hard for the back end of the roster to develop. And we're seeing the fruits of that now. And it obviously, they needed more players farther along than they were this year, and that impacted the season they had. So between the reality of NIL beginning and not being ready for it, I think the positive is that Rutgers, with the collectives, Knights Society, Knights of the Raritan, there is relationships there. There is organization there. What they're getting from private donors is hard to decipher. But Rutgers, put it this way: Steve Pikiell prioritizes NIL and understands the importance of NIL in recruiting 100% more than before. And that's not a knock on him from before. It was just how things have evolved. And in just 2 years, the game has changed completely. And now with no transfer limitations, it's just a completely different recruiting world. And how does Steve Pikiell adjust? How does the coaching staff adjust to this now and in the future is going to be paramount to the program's success moving forward. And obviously, huge wins in the 2024 recruiting class. Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, Lathan Somerville, Bryce Dortch and Dylan Grant are key pieces for the future as well. I think it's their best, most highly ranked class, right? At top 5 last time I checked. I think they were number 3. This is a huge class coming in. But now, what do? How do you build from the portal? We haven't heard any announcements on Tuesday. Could change. Never say never in this ever-changing world. Mawat Mag, Cliff Amori, been widely reported. I felt that they're most likely to leave. Very well could still happen. All these things kind of, have their own fluidity in terms of decision-making and, when things will be announced. But I can tell you that, the program is definitely much more prepared than they've ever been going into an offseason. And I think their goal is to have the roster in terms of what pieces need to be plugged, what pieces need to be filled, who's coming, who's going. They're trying to have that established as soon as possible. Jeremiah Williams announced on Instagram yesterday that he was returning. Strong implications he was coming back. It was something with Chris Corso, communications director for Rutgers basketball. Does a good job. Talked about. He made a comment to Chris that there's more to come or something in that regard that strongly implied he was returning. I think the hope is that JaMychal Davis, I think, pretty much a lock at this point. Obviously, his relationship with Ace Bailey, but, showed some signs as a freshman. Obviously, needs to improve his shooting, needs to get stronger. But, what he showed defensively, there was a time where he was a very good facilitator last season, struggled a little bit down the stretch with turnovers and such. But, he showed promise. Gavin Griffiths, of course, really got better that last few weeks of the season. High hopes for him still. And then Emmanuel Ogbole, I think there's some hope that he'll return. Very raw player, coming off injury. Remains to be seen, but I think it's very probable that this team will have 3 to 4 spots to fill. In the transfer portal, most likely, maybe they dip in and they get someone from the 2024 class still. But I think what this team needs more than anything is key pieces out of the transfer portal. And I think expectations might be a little bit out of check right now. Just in terms of social media and what people are looking for and the kind of players that are coming out that we don't even know if Rutgers is involved with them or not, but fans are kind of, poo-pooing. And I did want to touch on that because, this isn't football and basketball is a completely different world. And there's a lot of high-level basketball that's played at the mid-major level. And what Rutgers needs more than anything else out of the transfer portal to plug whatever holes they have, they need hoopers. They need true basketball hoopers. And what is a hooper? A hooper are guys that live in the gym, that know how to win, that know how to play the game, play at a high IQ, can make shots, and outwork you, and guys that just know how to make winning plays and fit into a winning culture, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a kid from a high major. It doesn't mean that it won't be, right? But if you're telling me there's, and Rutgers might land someone that has 1 or 2 years experience at a high major, maybe didn't play a lot of minutes, was a highly regarded recruit in high school, and those guys could come in and help. But from my perspective, next year, the thing is, right, And fans will get upset. Oh, Dylan and Ace, they're only staying 1 year. Well, guess what? You have to look at everyone as a 1 year deal right now. Every team is going to be different. Every roster is going to be different. And whether they go to the NBA draft after 1 year or hit the portal again, I mean, I'd rather have the kids that are going to the NBA draft because the talent level is so high. So don't get hung up on, they're only going to be here 1 year. Guess what? Let's make the most of next year, and then we'll worry about the rest when we worry about the rest. And what does that mean? That means go out and get kids with experience that know how to play the game, that know how to win, that come from winning cultures, and that bring a specific skill set, and they're willing to play a role. You can't bring in 6 kids that all want the ball in their hands, that all want to be the star. And sometimes, not always, sometimes you get former top recruits that went to a high major, it didn't work out. They still think they're going to be the star, and they go somewhere else and they want to be that star. Where, you know what? Maybe a kid that was less recruited that has succeeded at a high level of basketball in college, listen, if Rutgers could get a kid from the Missouri Valley, right? I mean, look at what Marcus Damask and Lance Jones did out of Southern Illinois last year. Marcus Damask, an absolute star for Illinois. Lance Jones, huge key piece for Purdue this past season. Their former teammate, Troy D'Amico, entered the portal today. I mean, that kid, 6'7", shot 36% from 3 on 140 attempts, shot 53.5% from 2, 87% from the foul line. He's 6'7". He can play the 3 or the 4. He's gritty. If you watch tape of him, and I listen, I don't know if he's even someone that they're going to pursue, but just on paper and on film, like that's the type of kid that's a winning kid that, you can add potentially, right? Whoever does add him. And that's the kind of kid that will go to a team that, will play a role. You need guys that are okay taking 4 or 5 shots, 3 or 4 shots. They'll make more than they miss. And they'll do the little things to win. They'll be glue guys for you. They have versatility. They make smart decisions. Just things like understanding spacing on the floor. My biggest criticism, I think, of last year's team, the offense, was that they had no feel. They had no understanding of kind of offensive concepts in terms of, how to space the floor, how to share the basketball. They did it at times. They showed flashes of it. They didn't do it enough. They weren't disciplined enough to do that. You need guys from winning teams from the mid-major level that have experience, that have played 3 or 4 years, that have been in tough situations, that have had to deal with adversity, that have had to fight through stuff. I'm not worried about the defense. You might not get the same level of defensive players. Like if Cliff leaves, and they replace him, you're probably not going to get the same level of rim defender. But guess what? Steve Pikiell can teach defense. He knows how to scheme defensively. He will make every player that comes to Rutgers better defensively. It might take a little while for them to gel as a unit, right? But if you add offensive talent and then you teach defense, it's better than the other way. You can't teach offense as much as you need guys that can shoot, that can make baskets, that have a feel for how to play offensively, right? And yes, concepts and schemes offensively matter. What sets you run, the myth that Rutgers doesn't run an offense is false. But if you get kids that know how to win, know how to play the game of basketball, can make shots, I don't care what level they come from. I don't care if it's the Missouri Valley. I don't care if it's the Patriot League. I mean, look at Cam Spencer. He came from a poor team in the Patriot League. If you get a shooter, 3/4 of what Cam Spencer is, take him. The Ivy, a kid from the Ivy that knows how to play and that can shoot the basketball. That's a winner. Listen, these teams that, like South Dakota State, those kind of schools, if you got a guy that's versatile, that can shoot, that can play a role and come in and give you experience and live in the gym and add to a winning culture, that's what you need. It's not about what's on the front of their jersey. It's not about getting the guy that's the 12th man on, an SEC team. Maybe they could help you. Maybe they can. But for my money, and also, listen, Rutgers has NIL. They're not going to be in the market to just throw money at guys and get whoever they want out of the portal. But they have money to spend, and they're going to get credible guys out of the portal. But it's all part of a puzzle. This roster building is part of the puzzle. They have to be strategic. And I think Steve Pikiell is learning as he goes. Again, that 22 class did not work out. Can't take projects for this team. You got to get guys that can win and that can help you right now for this team. You have NIL to work with now. Didn't have that with 22. You have opportunities. You have Ace and Dillon, right? They're starring roles. Jeremiah Williams coming back. But other than that, right, we don't know yet if Cliff and Magrin will return. If they don't, I mean, there's wide open opportunity for minutes and key roles on this team. And you need guys that can fill roles and play winning basketball. And that's what I think fans need to remember. Don't get hung up on where they're from. Look at the details. Look at what they offer. Look what they bring to the table. It's going to be a fun offseason. It's going to be a hectic offseason. Buckle up. And I hope you go through it with me. Aaron Brightman here at the Scarlet Faithful. Thanks for listening and watching once again.